Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, blood once again stains the hills and valleys of Kivu. Gunfire, shelling, and the desperate cries of fleeing families are now daily realities. Kinshasa's coalition forces, an alliance of the FDLR terrorist group, Wazalendo militias, Burundian troops, and hired foreign mercenaries have turned villages into graveyards. For the Banyamulenge of Minembwe, this horror is nothing new. Targeted massacres have haunted them for decades. In late August 2025, attacks in Kadosomwa and nearby villages claimed hundreds of lives, forcing entire communities to abandon their homes and livelihoods. To understand today's turbulence, we must go back to 2021. The M23 movement re-emerged, accusing the Congolese government of betraying peace accords and fueling hatred against Tutsi communities. What began as a defensive force evolved into one of the region's strongest armed campaigns. By early 2025, despite being outnumbered and facing heavy weaponry, M23 seized strategic cities including Goma and Bukavu. Their resurgence was less about military might and more a consequence of Kinshasa's refusal to address long-standing grievances. In 2023, East African Community Forces briefly brought calm, enforcing a ceasefire. But instead of building on this fragile peace, President Felix Tshisekedi dismissed them, accusing them of failing to crush M23. Kinshasa instead turned to SADC, Western mercenaries, and more controversially, the FDLR, whose dark history is tied to the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. This allegiance escalates tensions, with FDLR fighters shelling Rwandan territory and killing civilians in Kinigi. By early 2025, as M23 captured Goma, the war teetered on becoming an intense conflict. Congolese forces massed along Rwanda's border. FRDC shells landed inside Rwandan territory. Some Congolese soldiers fled into Rwanda, while more than 200 foreign mercenaries surrounded in Goma were repatriated through Rwanda.
Don't joke to M23, my bro. Don't joke. That is army for the people. Don't joke. Don't joke. Move, quickly.
The conflict was no longer local. It threatened to destabilize the entire region. Amid the chaos, diplomacy seemed to offer hope. In June 2025, under US mediation, Rwanda and the DRC signed a declaration of principles. A month later, M23 and Kinshasa signed another agreement under the Qatar facilitation. But before the ink dried, the M23 group cited a series of ceasefire violations, with the Kinshasa coalition being accused of unleashing a new deadly offensive targeting Banyamulenge populations. Statistics paint a chilling picture. According to AFC M23 spokesperson Lawrence Kanyuka, more than 350 Banyamulenge villages have been burned down in 8 years, and more than 700 cattle, the backbone of this pastoral community, looted. From across the border, Rwanda watches closely. Addressing the Rwanda Defense Forces at the Combat Training Center in Gabiro recently, President Paul Kagame warned of hostile intentions from two leaders in the region who had openly expressed intentions to harm Rwanda, only to realize later that such a move would not be easy. The head of state did not mention the leaders, but his remarks appear to point toward Burundi's President Evariste Ndayishimiye and DRC's Felix Tshisekedi, given their history of hostile remarks against Rwanda. The two leaders had spoken of intentions to overthrow Kigali's leadership. Addressing the security personnel, President Kagame stressed the need for vigilance, discipline, and precision. Reflecting on Rwanda's tragic past during the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, President Kagame reminded the world that indifference had enabled the atrocities and cautioned against the ongoing silence that continues to shield armed groups such as the FDLR, the Wazalendo militia, and Kinshasa's coalition forces, which are being sanitized despite their continued killing of civilians. The war in the Eastern Congo is no longer a rebellion. It is a crisis of governance, a cycle of broken promises, and a breeding ground for ethnic cleansing. For the Banyamulenge and other communities, daily survival is uncertain. Unless Kinshasa addresses the grievances fueling M23's existence, Eastern Congo will remain trapped in war. And as long as the world looks away, the hills of Kivu will echo not with peace, but with the cries of civilians abandoned once again. This is not just Congo's crisis, it is a regional threat and a test for the world's conscience.